the Community Living Standing Committee. I'm looking at attendance right now on my big screen, and I can see all of the committee members. Plus, we're also joined by Mayor Herron and Councillor Hanson. And I don't see any other councillors at this particular time. So we have full attendance of the committee. So I'll call the meeting to order. And any additions to the agenda? Any of the committee members? Mayor Herron? No. So saying that, I'm just going to adopt the agenda, Cheryl or Renee, who's ever taking minutes. So I don't need a motion. I'm just going to adopt the agenda. Anybody standing by registered to speak or anything like that other than administration? I don't see anybody joining us. Anybody in the waiting room?
No, we don't have anybody.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Approval of March 9th, 2020 meetings. That's the last time we had a meeting, either virtual or in person. So can I, any changes or amendments to the March 9th? Seeing nothing from committee members, then I'm going to just approve the minutes, adopt the minutes. I don't need a motion. So, and we're moving along. I hope we're good. And so the item number 6 is new business and housing affordability and accessibility project update. Lori, are you going to be presenting, or Carrie, do you have any opening comments?
No, I'll turn it right over to Lori Scott.
All right. Okay, Lori, it's yours. Are you going to share your screen? Do you have a presentation?
Yes, I will. I'll do that right now and hopefully it'll work. Okay.
We're all become perfect. It looks good. Great.
Good morning. This presentation is a summary of the information within the Housing Affordability and Accessibility Implementation Plan. The corporate business plan directed administration to work with regional partners to explore additional housing options to address issues of affordability and accessibility, and reviewed best practices for alternative financing. St. Albert's guiding principles through the community vision, social master plan, and MDP reinforce St. Albert's goal to be a welcoming and inclusive community, supporting housing options for all residents. Every person has the right to adequate housing. The reality is that some people, no matter how hard they work, cannot afford housing provided by the market. We anticipate that we will see an increased need for housing and supportive services as the impacts from COVID-19 continue. The implementation plan is primarily focused on community housing and affordable rental and homeownership options, shown on the right-hand side of the housing continuum, principally addressing housing needs related to income. Emergency, transitional, and supportive housing on the left-hand side require a higher level of public funding, operational subsidies, and supportive services for residents. The governance direction provided by Council in January instructed administration to focus on strategic planning and coordination of initiatives using municipal resources to expand the housing supply through one-time capital grants or land donations. This direction establishes the city as a key coordinating entity for housing within St. Albert's borders, which led to the development of the implementation plan to successfully facilitate housing development targets in alignment with Council's strategic priorities. The implementation plan is based on 5 objectives. Number 1, to develop a housing incentive investment program, establish housing targets and performance measures, implement best practices for alternative financing, improve housing choice, and align housing policy with corporate direction. The Housing Incentive Investment Program is a primary objective of the implementation plan and is intended to spur development of the city's housing supply in areas that are not currently met by the private market. A strong municipal commitment towards housing is necessary to capture funding from other levels of government and community partners as a leverage strategy. As we recover from COVID-19, we need to ensure that the city is an active partner in the recovery process. Housing investment will provide local jobs, necessary housing, and spin-off benefits for local businesses. Interest rates are extremely low, and we have a high level of federal government investment in housing at the present time. This example from Saanich shows the incentives provided by the district and the city. Municipal contributions were not as significant as federal and provincial funding. It demonstrated a strong leadership commitment towards local housing and reduced the average monthly rent cost, improving the affordability of the project. A municipal program requires a consistent funding stream to enable long-term planning to align with identified performance targets. Administration is proposing a similar model to St. Albert's Municipal Historic Conservation Program, considering an allocation amount equivalent to $4 per resident per year from taxation starting in the 2021 budget year. This equals the approximate cost of 1 unit annually. The example provided by Saskatoon's housing program within the report illustrates that the city can stimulate the construction of affordable units more effectively than purchasing a single unit. In 2018, Saskatoon supported the development of 142 units with $400,000 in available funding. Objective number 2 is to establish housing targets and performance measures based on available funding and resources dedicated to the Housing Incentive Investment Program. Inconsistent, sporadic funding would restrict the city's ability to develop and meet performance targets. Funding would be allocated to housing supply and services across the spectrum, with 40% for vulnerable populations, 50% for capital investments, and 10% to preserve and protect existing affordable housing. Objective number 3 defines actions to implement best practices for alternative financing. Appendix 1 explored a variety of alternative financing measures that could be considered as specific strategies. As the city does not intend to own or operate housing, the simplest, most direct way the city can support affordable housing is to have funding, land, and other resources available to respond to partnership opportunities. Energy-saving performance contract approaches could assist housing operators with the cost of capital improvements that could be repaid from realized energy cost savings. This strategy could be implemented if the city created a municipal energy service company. Objective number 4 is to improve market housing choice. A review of housing development options listed in this slide is underway in consultation with the development industry. These options will be presented to the Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee this afternoon for feedback and direction on future implementation. Objective number 5 is to align housing policy with corporate direction. 8 actions are recommended, including aligning the housing supply with environmental and community sustainability objectives, developing a housing advocacy plan, aligning municipal funding with accessibility goals, and consolidating all housing approaches into an updated affordable housing strategy and policy. St. Albert's affordable housing strategy is 15 years old and no longer reflects the city's guiding principles. Council has indicated they're interested in developing a voluntary density bonus policy, which has been included with these recommendations. A density bonus policy must be accompanied with funding source and housing operator to purchase and manage the units developed. Density bonus strategies further reinforce that the city requires funding in order to implement desired strategies. Administration's recommendation is that the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council that the Housing Affordability and Accessibility Implementation Plan and the required associated funding model provided as an attachment to the June 9th, 2020 agenda report entitled Housing Diversity and Accessibility Implementation Plan be approved. In conclusion, St. Albert requires a full and balanced mix of housing choices to maintain the city's quality of life and to ensure that all residents' needs are met. Without municipal actions, funding opportunities will be missed and housing needs will continue to rise. It's a new era, a new decade, and the right time to start working in a new direction. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Scott. I appreciate it. It's the attachment, and for anybody watching on YouTube, it's in our agenda package. It's an excellent report. I appreciate the time and effort the administration has put into it. Any questions from committee members? Sorry, I can't see everybody here. Hang on for a sec.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, there you go, Natalie. Sorry, I apologize. I'm just expanding out my screen.
So Lori, did you want to take off your screen share?
Sure. Sorry, I didn't realize it still had that on there.
No problem.
I just got to figure this out.
Go, can you get it or do you need help? There you go. You did it. Thank you, Lori. Go ahead, Councillor Jolly. Or is that you that had the question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I assume Councillor Hughes has a couple as well. So my first question is around, so the recommending kind of putting 260 in the budget per year to address this kind of thing. Right now, we're already spending about 100 a year kind of on a regular basis through a different grant program. Would the intent be to kind of continue both of those? So kind of 360 a year or consolidate everything into this one program? Is that a part of the recommendation?
Councillor Jolie, it's right now, we're not really, the community grant for operational funding is not part of our parameters. So it's up to council to decide what they would like to do with that. This is proposing new money for housing capital and housing incentives. Right now, the other funding is strictly for operational costs.
Okay, thank you. And then the other, one of the proposed activities of the program was the home ownership program. So shared equity or down payment assistance grants or deferred land purchase measures to assist first-time home buyers. So I guess, can you explain a little bit more kind of the reason for that particular one? I don't get the impression that we have a low number of, or a low number of homeowners, I guess, in St. Albert. So
these were just ideas of programs that we could implement. We do not have specific programs to be implemented at the present time. It's just
okay.
On, what those are options that we could consider in the future.
Okay, that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Any Councillor Hughes, any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so with what you're recommending here, because we have table 5 and you have like recommended. So if we're recommending this to council, I also feel like we're also recommending these programs.
Those were, table 5 is a list of options that we could consider for funding for affordable housing and implementation plan and housing incentive investment program. The number 1 on it in highlighted in blue is the primary recommendation that we're recommending. The other ones could be options that we could consider, and we will be looking into that further just to see if there's other options that could be available.
So for council, the one thing that's going to be recommended for approval is the municipal tax increase for the $4 per person, and the rest of them are not being recommended?
No, the rest of them could be considered in the future, but a sustainable funding source is the primary recommendation, which would be through taxation.
Okay, because I'm just trying to, I'm a little nervous about recommending something like, for example, as Councillor Jolly said about like the deferred land purchase program, and having the city start buying land and having other people pay it later. The other concern I have is having, somewhere in here, I think we said that we're going to do land sales at below market value for affordable housing. I don't think that's even compatible with the MGA. I believe you have to sell everything at market value. If I remember correctly, a different municipality got in trouble for selling land below market value.
The MGA will allow you to sell land at below market value to a nonprofit, and it has to be advertised. I believe the section is identified in the agenda report under the legal.
Okay.
Oh, no, it isn't right now. You are able to do that.
Okay, I'm pretty nervous about what we're doing here, because basically we're still just giving people money. I mean, whether you give money in free land or you give money in just money, this program, this recommendation seems pretty aggressive. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting to see come out of a recommendation from a few months ago, was to start just pouring money into this situation, which is what it looks like through many different areas. And if we start doing 260,000 plus a year towards building one new unit, who are we expecting to operate these units? Are we going to have for people like how Habitat can apply for it, or the Housing Society can apply for it, or how are we going to have, who's going to be operating these units that suddenly the city is starting to pay for?
We won't be considering purchasing units. What we will be considering is doing programs that will provide incentives for other people to develop units. So if, say, a developer wants to do a development and he is providing a certain percentage of affordable housing, we could provide an incentive to him to keep those as affordable. So it could be like you could provide a relaxation on some development fees, but the funding for the development fees would come out of the Affordable Housing Investment Program, because development fees are based on costs that we have to recover. Other incentives would be, we could have a rental incentive program, so encourage developers to develop rental housing based on an incentive of a certain amount per unit that they would be developing. Other options we could consider is land. So if we had some land, or if somebody else was going to purchase land, we could provide an incentive to them so that they would be able to bridge the gap between what it costs to develop and what it costs to operate as affordable. There, it's basically a numbers game. The costs are the costs, and you have to figure out a way in order to make the cost, reduce the costs so that the units can be provided at a reduced rate that makes it financially viable.
It's just, it seems like these can all make money for the private developer, but I mean, how long are they going to have it as rental? How long do they have to have it as subsidized rental? All these type of things where you're saying, we'll give them X dollars so that they basically are just paying for someone's rent, because they're going to say they'll have it as a subsidized rental for what, $200 less a month, which is what all they basically have to do to be considered affordable housing. And then we're going to give them $100,000 or something to help them do that. Basically, we're just upfront paying for that. And they're probably going to make more money than they would had they just not just the $200 a month. I mean, if we say we're going to do 5 units at $200 a month, it's $1,000. So we give them $100,000 to do that. That's a pretty long time for them to actually, we're paying for a lot more rent than they're actually giving back. So this to me I'm very uncomfortable with what's being suggested, I guess is what I'll tell you as feedback, is to say we're getting $260,000 a year is a significant increase beyond what we were paying before for affordable housing. And I can see this as a potential for developers to make money, not necessarily to provide a lot of affordable housing units. And so a lot of these things I'm looking at, I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable about. The other thing I'm wondering about is the density bonus policy. I don't remember council saying we want to do a density bonus policy.
Councillor Jolie had mentioned it in when we did the presentation to council on the best practices for affordable housing. So
Okay.
That is something that
wasn't a council approved motion, then that was just feedback from one councillor.
That was feedback from one councillor. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like the density in St. Albert with all new developments is getting up pretty high already. And so giving extra bonuses to do even more density is not necessarily something that many people in St. Albert are looking for. As we've heard from the Riverbank Landing, every day more emails telling us that we don't want density bonuses, I would guess we would say, to encourage higher density developments. So that also, that wasn't just council decision, that was one person's opinion, which you could use my opinion just as well as hers if you want to say whose opinion you want to follow on this. So a lot of these things in here I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable with. And so I'm just, that's kind of where I'm at with this.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Scott.
The one option to consider right now is that we currently are not providing any funding towards affordable housing. We're providing operational funding through the Community Outside Agency Grant Program, but that's the only funding that we are doing towards affordable housing at the present time.
Thank you. Just to follow up question, sorry, Councillor Hughes, I'll get back to you in a minute here. Is there an allocation of staff, or is it from existing staff? Is there a new allocation of staff included in the recommendation?
No, there is no allocation of new staff in this recommendation.
So the $4 per resident would just cover the cost of the programming, not actually a staff person. That would come from existing complement of staff.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Hughes, go ahead. Sorry, I apologize for interrupting.
No, actually, the thing I have is that I understand we're not putting any money directly into capital. I don't necessarily think that with our budget constraints that putting $250,000 is a pretty big increase. I would think that 50,000 to 100 would have been the top in my mind of what we would say we'd be committing to. But when I look at what we're doing here, I mean, we don't actually have a program. What you're suggesting, we just put money into something and then we'll figure out the rules of the program later. And I think that what we should have is, if we're going to be committing money into something, we should have the clear indication of what the parameters are of what we would be considering to give the money out. Because you've listed many programs that could be used with absolutely no parameters as to what we would be considering for how the money be coming out, and the expectations of what we want to have from the development community to get that money. So, I mean, that's the thing I look at here, is we have a lot of options. And now you're saying give out 276 recommendations, 260,000 a year for programs that are basically just, we could do this, we could do that. There's nothing that's well defined. And I think that if you wanted to do 260 a year or any amount of money, we should have a clear indication of how the parameters are, how the money is coming out, and what kind of a result we're expecting to have for a bang for our buck. And that's not indicated here in anywhere. So that's the problem I'm having right now with agreeing to give money without having a clear indication of what we'll be getting from out of it, other than just saying we're getting affordable housing, which is a very vague term as to what we'd actually expect to have come out of this. So I think that the program actually needs to be in some detail, and much greater detail, because right now it's in no detail.
Councillor Hughes, it becomes a chicken and an egg situation. You know, how can you develop a program if you don't know how much money you have? Anything you know, I mean, you can, so say we wanted to provide incentives to developers. It's completely different if we want to develop a program that we have $50,000 or a program that we have 260, because we're also dividing it among the whole housing spectrum, from vulnerable populations to capital to supporting existing units. So without knowing what the money is, we can't really develop something that is going to provide you enough information. You know, I mean, basically we'll develop a program and say, well, we don't have enough money to implement it.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree, because I think that you could tell me what the program is. You could say, come back with a program for X number of dollars and we'll discuss it, or 3 different options. But if you're going to have multiple people coming to the pot, all you're determining with the amount of money is how many people get to come up to the pot. It doesn't just distract us from actually being able to make parameters around it. So saying that you want the money and we'll come back with the program later, I think is just the wrong way to do it. I think we should have parameters of exactly what we would expect to get for bang for our buck before we actually say we're going to commit this money. And if you tell us we need this much money to do it, we're expecting this many people to take up on it, that would be one thing. But we don't have anything right now. And so the amount of money is not actually the thing that determines what the program is going to be. We've changed money parameters many times on many programs. That's not what determines it. So what determines what we're going to get is what we expect to see for ROI. And we don't have anything on an ROI. All we want right now to have is a commitment. So that, I mean, right now, I'll tell you right now, I'm not comfortable approving this document because we don't have enough details. All we have is a lot of money commitments and not actually a lot of details about what we're supposed to get from it or what we're supposed to be giving to it and what the developers should be expecting to do on this. So, I mean, there's a lot missing in this, a lot. That's it.
Any other comments, Mayor Herron or Councillor Hughes? Or yeah, pardon me, Hanson. Pardon me, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Jolie.
Thank you. I guess I'd echo some of Councillor Hughes's concerns about kind of setting the budget before we set targets. I would be okay spending more money than this if it was connected to very particular targets. You know, even yesterday I was reading about Edmonton's. I think they're looking at 4,000 units by a particular date, and then they're making their investment decisions based on that. And even using the land that we're considering for a donation or a long-term lease to build affordable housing, that could mean that this year we, you know, spend $1 million on housing, but then maybe next year we're going to be spending less. So I'm struggling with having a document that that doesn't have any kind of targets included. I don't know, and I guess reaching out to everyone, I don't know if a better, and I hate this, but a better kind of place to discuss this would be kind of an all council workshop, so that we can kind of talk about the types of targets that we're looking at. I don't know if that would be valuable. I'd love to hear from everyone in the room about that. And in terms of recommending this get approved, I would certainly be hesitant without a fair bit of red pen. You know, I kind of commented that the one program option about shared equity or down payment assistance grants, that one makes me pretty uncomfortable, and I wouldn't want to have that in the document going to council. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that we are supporting housing organizations through operational funding, and I think it would be better to have those consolidated into one program. And I think that's I see Mayor Heron nodding. That's a discussion that we need to have that's not addressed in this document. So that's where I'm sitting right now. So in terms of a recommendation, I would say that we all need to sit at a table and figure out what our goals are and how we can kind of have a consolidated plan.
All right, thanks. You know, I see where the comments are coming from, but I mean, it's also, I don't feel like I have to defend it, but I mean, at the same time, we gave administration clear direction, and they've come back with what I think is a very complete document outside of what I recognize where you're saying we don't have specific kind of programming and saying we're going to do this and going to do that. But I take administration's comments that it is a chicken and an egg kind of of an argument or a discussion, pardon me. You know, a lot of what's identified in the short term is actionable, and it is actually specific to dealing with it. And some of it we're already implementing with the EOI that we currently have outstanding, where we've allocated a parcel of land, and we're moving forward. And so, you know, the current plan, as I've been identified, is out of date. It's 15 years old. So I thought this was a strong effort on administration to come back and outline potentially some of the objectives and some of the even actionable specific strategies. Now we can discuss, I think, like you've identified, some of the other mid to long-term implications, but I mean, I get the $4, and I'm just saying, and potentially with what we're going through right now and with the ongoing review that we're going to undertake pretty soon, we're going to be facing it. So I mean, I understand where people are concerned or have some challenges right now, but I thought it was a fairly strong document. But those are just comments right now. Councillor Hanson, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for that. Laurie, I thought it was a great document, and echoing a little bit of what Councillor McKay said. I mean, there's so many variables to affordable housing and so many ways to do this and so many different programs out there. I really appreciate that you have narrowed it down to 5 objectives for us to be guided by. And so the only thing that I would say is, you know, maybe the alternative to recommendation is where we want to go. You know, approving the specific goals and actions, is that basically the 5 objectives and then sort of rejigging the plan after that? Is that what that alternative to recommendation says?
Yes, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, so I mean, we call them 5 objectives in the document, but alternative 2 says approve specific goals and actions. So that's just where I'm wondering about the discrepancy. But I think that it's a solid document. Do we want to tweak it? You know, the conversation today is saying, yeah, maybe we need to be talking about this a little bit more, but we have to actually start from somewhere and not from a document that's 15 years old. So I think I appreciate what you've done here, and, you know, would support committee if they want to have a conversation. But personally, I'd like to see it based on what we have in this plan. That's it for me.
Fair enough. I think I would agree with your comments. I think alternative number 2, although that would require us to go through that and we would have to identify, I mean, for example, there's 8 different actions in relation to some of these steps. So I don't know. I don't want to go through and just cherry pick or identify. I think that's just beyond our capacity today to do, but I appreciate your comments.
No, but what I'm saying, Councillor McKay, is that there is a lot of detail in the actual plan, but the basis of the 5 objectives is a good place to start. And I don't think that we should be the ones cherry picking all of those little bits of activities, but maybe there are some things in there that we can just take out and simplify, or maybe, I mean, maybe that's the conversation that needs to happen, is that if we come together as a workshop, we're working from this document. I guess is what I'm saying. I don't want to see Lori go back out and make a brand new document and start again.
Yeah, I understand. I agree with that. And I just maybe I got tied up in the wording around specific goals and actions versus approving the objectives within it, but the action steps to come later, potentially. Because I mean, I support in principle the objectives that have been identified, because they're based off of direction from council. Sorry about the dog in the background, if you can hear him. Anything, Mayor Herron?
First off, I apologize. My Surface wasn't working, and I think IT's got it figured out, but I haven't been completely focused on this because I've been trying to fix my computer. So I don't know all of what's been said. Quick question. I see Natalie's comment in the chats. Lori, have we talked about the shared equity program today during committee?
No, we have not.
Are we able to kind of give council a bit of a quick summary of what that program is? I'm assuming this is what we've worked on with that one meeting you had up in the executive order.
The shared equity program isn't
me that I can't hear her.
Can you hear it? The shared equity program really hasn't fleshed out right now. It was just an option that could be potentially within. Does anybody else have any issues?
No, we can hear you, Lori.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Lori. She's just having ongoing computer issues. So I think we'll let her get her headphones on and then just try it again. How does that work, Mayor Herron? Can you hear us? No. Councillor Jolie, I'm just looking at your comments in chat. Mayor Herron, no, she's having trouble. Now she's being attacked by her headphones. Go ahead, Ms. Scott, you can continue with your explanation into the question. Sorry, I was hoping she'd come back.
The shared, we have been approached by an organization to look at shared equity. Right now that is still in the works. It hasn't really been fleshed out yet to an extent that we could actually talk about it.
All right.
Or to actually know if it really will work or not.
Okay. Councillor Jolie, go ahead, Councillor Hughes. Did you have a comment?
Thank you. I just, so Councillor Jolie, I saw your chat. So you had it say, I want to support this plus these. The extra ones made sense. What's your original motion? Is it to approve the document, or is it just those 3 things? I was just trying to get clarity as to what we're going to be.
Well, I mean, what I would prefer to do is, so kind of for everyone watching, I'm proposing removing that blip about shared equity or down payment assistance from the document before it's kind of sent to council. That we also recommend to council that we take a look at operational grants that are currently being funded to consolidate them into this program. And the third thing, that we sit down in a workshop setting to sort out actual goals.
Yeah.
So and I know the order is really weird, but I guess I would prefer to do those first before voting on actually sending the document to council as amended, if it works out that way, because that will change my vote.
Okay, so you're not going to bring forward the recommendation. It'll be those three. Is that correct? I just want to get a clarity as to what we're doing.
That's my preference, if that suits the chair.
And I thank you for at least getting us in a direction. So that would be like an alternative 3 then, in more than a standalone 1 and 2. The only thing, why would you? And this is just a comment on it before, like, you haven't moved it. I realize that. Why prior to a workshop would you want to eliminate anything versus leaving everything for a workshop and then that discussion?
Because from what I understand right now, I don't want the city to get into the business of owning, even on a shared basis, residential property. But that's just my gut. And I mean, we could always put it back in if that was the will of council. I mean, when this goes to council, they'll have the original document, they'll have our motions from today, and anyone on council could bring it back in if they feel that that's something that they want.
Fair enough. My own perspective is it's a cleaner motion if we just move it back receive it today as information, moving it into a workshop, and then coming back with all the information.
I would be fine with that as well.
Okay. Fair enough.
Kind of in addition to the kind of looking at all the grants accessible to housing organizations. So absolutely, I would support something like that, saying, let's just accept it as information and sit around a table together. I would support that as well.
Yeah,
okay.
That makes the most sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cheryl, have you got that? Have you been able to follow that conversation?
Yes, I understand that it'll be, instead of be approved, it will be received as information.
And then a direction to come back at a workshop to be determined at agenda planning. Or go ahead, Carrie. I apologize.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go, Councillor McKay, did you want this within 2 months or within a period of time, or just so we know where we're kind of working towards?
Yeah, and I think that would have to be up to agenda planning to kind of come back and determine the time frame, because obviously, as you know, we're moving into some heavy work with the operation review and the like. So Mayor Herron, I don't know whether or not you can hear us on your iPhone yet. Can you? So right now, after your question, and sorry that you're having trouble with your
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thanks.
So go ahead if you want to. Did you want to respond?
Take a chance to explain the shared equity?
No, she totally ignored your question, didn't we? Who are you anyway? Yeah, she did. So go ahead.
Okay, because I was quite intrigued by this, because it was actually going to provide money back and feed the system as a funding source. So I would like to see that.
Yeah, and so did you want her to respond again, Mayor Herron, or did you?
No, I think I understand.
Okay, I think where we've taken the discussion then is to look at. I mean, the report is fantastic. The concern is around that we've been sharing is around some of the specific actionable items, and also the amount of financial commitment that's being put forward this morning. Also, some other specifics that Councillor Joly has identified. But I think the direction that I'm hearing us going for is to maybe take this back to a workshop to be determined by planning or agenda planning. I just need a motion then. Silence.
You know what though, Ken, is that a workshop's not supposed to give, council's not supposed to give direction in workshops. So I think it should be like a special council meeting or something like that, like, or something, another committee, like a special committee or whatever, special committee of the whole thing that we can do. Because
Okay.
I think that would be more suitable than a workshop, because we're not supposed to be doing direction workshops, and I'd like to keep that clear.
No, that's a good point. I just took workshop from,
Yeah, no, I understand the intention. I just like, we should just call it what it is though, which would be a special committee meeting or something like that. Whatever, isn't that what it's called? That's what we could have?
yeah, special committee, but I'm just seeking direction from Mr. LaFleur. Mr. LaFleur, can committee make that recommendation?
If you mean, Mr. Chair, you mean make the recommendation to schedule a workshop?
No, well, because taking Councillor Hughes' concerns in relation to direction, because obviously some of the work that we would get at a workshop, we already have the work done by administration. And then some of the comments and concerns, I'm not sure if you were with us the entire meeting, were around specific actionable items that would require decisions that would have to occur at a special council meeting. So what's being suggested is that we take this information for this morning, and then come back in a special council meeting where we can actually start to look at some actionable items and provide direction to administration.
Okay, so on that point, then the way the resolution or the motion is currently worded in the chat is that administration schedule a workshop, etc. You could change that to say that the committee recommend that the mayor schedule a special council meeting to further explore the options in the report, something like that. Again, you're recommending,
Yeah.
and in this case, you wouldn't recommend it to council because it's only the mayor who calls special meetings, right?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it. That's why I reached out to you. Any comments in relation to Mr. LaFleur's conversation or the conversation we just had? Go ahead, somebody. Councillor Hughes?
I think it can be a committee of the whole. I don't necessarily think it has to go to a council meeting, because it's a committee of the whole is more easily dialogued, I guess, than when we do a council meeting. But it can go to a committee. I just want the term to be correct, that it's not a workshop. It's going to be a committee of the special committee of the whole or whatever. Unless suddenly we are allowed to start making recommendations from council workshops, for that is what I meant by so, and I don't know who schedules it. I don't care. The mayor wants to schedule it. I'm cool with that. If the council does it, I'm cool with that. I don't care. Just so we have the term right. That's all. But I just don't think it should be a council meeting. It should be a committee meeting so we can hash it out, think about it, then approve it.
Fair enough. Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, I was just saying, so the motions that Renee posted, and the first one looks good, received as information, and then the second one just changed to that the CLSC recommend to the mayor that a committee of the whole be called to schedule a workshop, or basically asking the mayor to schedule a committee of the whole for that little second bit. Councillor Hughes is grinning at me, so she's probably got better wording, but I think that's what our intent is.
I just think she's worried that what you just called the mayor in chat. Go ahead, Mayor Herron.
I'm looking at the first recommendation that we receive it as information. I think we can skip that step.
Yep.
No point in us receiving a report for information that we're not finished with. Keep it at committee level.
Yeah, fair enough. We're just trying to modify it right now in the sense of providing it so that the rest of council has it.
In the package, no matter what, right?
Yeah, if that's the way it is. So right now, then, I just thought it was a housekeeping motion is all. So we've had lots of discussion. I just need a mover on this in relation to the direction.
Just make a motion to say we refer to a committee of the whole scheduled.
Hey, Mr. LaFleur, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying I'm typing something now that I think may work. Just give me a second.
All right, thank you. I just don't want to lose on the fact that Administration's done a fantastic report here, and I really appreciate the amount of thought and effort that's gone into it. And it's not only a foundation document, but I think it's it puts us on the right path to achieve some of what we're looking for in relation to modernizing what we're talking about when we look at affordable housing in St. Albert. So. Mayor Herron's Zoom is distracting. She's walking around with her camera there, so thank you. All right, Mr. LaFleur's put something on the chat. I just need a committee member to make the motion.
I assume that Councillor Jolly wanted to do it, but I mean, I'm cool either way. Do you want to do it, or I'll do it? I'm on the, is it cool? I can do it.
Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
Okay, let me just, I should have had her do it. The committee recommends that the options in the report be discussed in more depth with the whole council in committee of the whole. Oh, okay, there's a lot of holes there. Okay. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Any questions before I accept that? Any changes, modifications? Good. Mayor Herron, are you with us again? Okay. All right. I'll accept that. Anything to open, Councillor Hughes?
You know, I think that this does require input from everybody. I think that Councillor Jolly, thank you for bringing forward the suggestions, and somehow we massage it all to something we all agree with. And I mean, this is a $260,000 a year is a 0.25% tax increase. And this is in an environment where we really don't know how the economics are going to be working, not just for people with affordable housing needs, but also just for people who have houses that have to pay taxes. And so when we're putting this kind of money into it, I'd like to have a better dialogue with everybody from council and to make sure that the targets of what we're trying to achieve are clear, the ROI of what we're trying to achieve is clear, and then administration can go back and work with that to figure out where we want to move forward. Because this is a large money ask actually on an annual basis. This is I look at outside agencies, they get about 600,000. This is 260 just in this one topic. It's actually a substantial amount of money that we're discussing here. So I would love to have everybody on council have a consensus before this moves forward, so that we can have something that we can all live with, and also to be clear of what we're going to be getting, because putting up that kind of money without having a clear idea of what we're going to actually achieve, I think would be foolish. So thank you, Councillor Jolly, for suggesting this, because I think this is where we need to move forward on this, is to make sure that we have a clear council direction on where we want to go, what we want to achieve, and how much money we want to put into it before we approve a document like this. That's it.
Thank you. Comments, Councillor Joly, anything to add? Mayor Herron, anything to contribute? I'll just wrap. My comments have already been said when we were making the discussion around this. I think certainly we provided direction to administration in relation to coming back, and we've got the start of some really strong strategic recommendation and objectives, and I think it puts us on the right path. I recognize, like I've said before, that there is some concern over a funding commitment and what that looks like and how that is accomplished. So I'm willing to have more discussions on that. And so I will support this in the sense of having that fulsome discussion. But saying that again, I think that there's a great deal of work done already about what the role of a municipality is, and even though I think of affordable housing should be at senior level government, but we have to play a part in that in our community. But recognizing the conditions that we are in, I'm willing to have a few more specific discussions as to what that looks like within the city of St. Albert. So anything to close, or any other comments?
Yeah, we're good. Is just, we already are putting quite a bit of money into affordable housing. I think it needs to be recognized with our annual commitments to operations, to the commitments of putting land into it, And so I don't want to have that disqualified into, and we need to put more money every single year when we could be putting potentially $1 million of land value into it, just this one proposal in and of itself. And this is a never ending money pit if we want it to be. So I think that all of the current contributions that we're having need to be recognized as well, and also offset about how much taxpayers need to put into it at every single year to do more. So I am looking forward to having council have a full discussion about this, because it is an important topic, but it also could be a never ending money pit if we do not make sure that we know what we're getting from it at the end of the day. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Call the vote. Can I call the question? Call the vote. Mayor, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Ms. Scott, thank you very much for the report. I appreciate, like I've said numerous times, I appreciate all the work that you've done and put into the report and administration. So thank you. That's all I have on my agenda. Any, nothing, Councillor Jolly, nothing? Or you're questioning? Nope. I have, you're just waving goodbye. Okay. I have nothing, so I'm just going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. I'll see anybody coming this afternoon. I'll see you this afternoon.